So ladies, let's start the meeting. And today is actually a very, very big day and a milestone for CAFE, because we have none other than Shri Hemant Kanoria ji with us. Though he needs no introduction, but मैं फिर भी थोड़ा बहुत facts जो है वो बताना चाहूँगी, because सारे members जो है यहाँ पर वो शायद हर fact न जानते हो. So Shri Hemant Kanoria ji, he started working at a very young age, at 17 years to be very precise, and he started by reviving two of the flour mills of his father. Sir, correct me if I'm wrong, I got this information from Wikipedia. So, and he started by reviving. I think reviving is a very tough task to do. To start something new is easier, but to revive or restart something which is closed is very, very difficult. From there, he went on to start India's leading infrastructure asset finance company, Shrey Infrastructure. So asset finance companies, I'll just explain. The equipments which we see on the roads for construction, the big tractors and the trucks and all. So Shrey is into financing of those equipments. Sir, I'm correct?
Yeah.
So, and Shrey is also the first infrastructure NBFC company to be listed on London Stock Exchange, and it happened way back in 2005. Major international institutions have invested in Shrey, which shows their trust. Shri Hemant ji did his schooling from La Martiniere for boys. So moms, those whose kids are in LMB can be really, really happy, because you are meeting an alumni from the prestigious school of LMB. And sir then did his graduation from St. Xavier's College. So again, a very prestigious college, and the best in Calcutta, still the best in Calcutta. Shri Hemant ji is very, very profoundly impacted by the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. And he also has immense knowledge of various granthas, the Upanishad, Veda. So Renu aunty told me that you like to speak about all those. And in fact, the name Shrey of the company name Shrey is also a Sanskrit word, which I just came to know today only. It means giving credit. So today we are really excited to have him on our platform CAFE, which is less than a year old. CAFE is a community for women who wish to spend their time productively. When our kids grow up, we women find a vacuum. And for us, it is very important to stay connected with like-minded women and keep learning. Today, we are a family of more than 200 women, and we are sharing our knowledge and experiences with each other very, very happily. And I'm really happy and proud to be the founder. And, you know, I never thought that it'll come this far. I would like to request sir now to please share some of his life experiences with all of us, which gives us women the confidence that being that just a homemaker is not small, and till the time we are learning and growing, being a homemaker is not a crime. So sir, over to you.
No, thank you. Dear ladies and sisters, I would say that thank you very much for Mrs. Kavita Agarwal and Mrs. Renu Saharia for giving me this opportunity to be here with you all on the webinar. And I think that, you know, this is something which we are also trying to learn. So every day of our lives is a learning experience. I must share with you that when Renu Bhabi mentioned to me that, you know, we would like to have this program of yours and it would be life lessons and motivational tips. So I said, you know, this is something which I can't do, because I can just share my experiences of life, that whatever I have had for the last many decades that I have been on this particular planet. And I can just share with you that what I have been experiencing. And I always feel that it is important to have a takeaway, that whenever any interaction takes place, there has to be a takeaway. And today's this interaction, I'm sure that I will have large number of takeaways, which is going to have and a much deeper influence in my life, interacting with all of you and getting this opportunity. So the takeaway which you have would depend upon what you take from this experience, which I would like to share with you. I think that what has happened now, this COVID-19 has the virus, which is just a small germ, has brought the entire humanity to its knees. We have never witnessed this kind of a situation ever in the past. Neither we have heard from our grandparents or from our parents that they were all locked down for so many days. And the entire humanity, it's almost about, I was reading an article somewhere. So out of the 7 billion population that we have on this particular planet, 700 crore people on this planet, almost about 300 crore people are locked down. So they are staying in their home so that they can be safe from this invisible small germ, the virus. And all the military weapons, all the nuclear weapons, where people and the countries and nations have invested huge amount of money, is of no help today. So if you just think for a moment, if you just step back and think, we can just imagine that how this universe runs, that if one germ can bring the entire humanity, which seems to be so arrogant and so powerful, each king and kings, queens, princes and princes and leaders all over the world, the presidents, prime ministers, everyone has bowed down to this small invisible virus. So this is what nature can do. So when the nature has been always bountiful and we have never recognized that, we have always neglected, we have always presumed things in our life, we have always lived with assumptions and taken things for granted. But today, it has all made us to think. When we are locked down in our houses, and we also, when we think about it, we see that when we are locked down in our houses, initially we felt that it will get over in 2 or 3 days. Now we see that it is going from 1 week to the next to the third, and then it is ongoing. And now the government has said that 3rd May will be opening up. But we don't know that whether it will actually opened up on the 3rd May or not. It may even get extended. Many of the other countries, they have opened up again, shut down. Singapore, many of the countries, they opened up and again they shut down because they were not able to arrest this virus. So I think that one thing which really strikes very strongly, and when this lockdown started off, I was just reflecting on our scriptures, and especially our Vedic scriptures, which is very rich in experiences of life. Because none of our Vedic scriptures have ordained on us that this is what you should do and you should not do. It has always left everything very open. Ours are the only scriptures, I would say, because that is why it has survived through generations and thousands of years, because it keeps everything very flexible. It makes people ask questions. It is not about a diktat which is given. If you look at the Quran, if you look at the Bible, these are all holy books which gives the diktat that these are the kind of things that you should be doing and this is what you should not be doing. Whereas in our scriptures, the Vedic scriptures, even questions that whether God is in existence or not. And that is a question that you have to ask yourself, that whether God exists or not. And one very clear antithetical balance, which sprouts up from our scriptures, and which is very true in the lockdown days, because when the lockdown began and when the second week passed on, I was just reflecting and thinking about it. And it was so true that there is one certainty in life that all of us, we know the certainty is that we are going to die. And it is certain. Whether Rama came or Krishna came, anyone who has come on this particular planet, they have died. So that is a certainty. And the uncertainty is that no one knows that when they are going to die. And we live within this certainty and uncertainty from the date that we are born. And the day that we start recognizing after 10 years, 15 years, that we are not immortal, then we are going to die. And still, we live with hope. We live that we have to study, we have to create a family, we have to be successful in business or profession or whatever we are doing. So with this duality, we live our entire lives between the certainty and uncertainty. But if on day one, if all of us when we were born, and if we had got one paper, which our astrologer could have given us with certainty that this is the date that you are going to die, then with that fear, we would not have been able to live. So I think this COVID is also just like that particular fear. And because of our scriptures in our country, I think that this is something which we can, as Indians, absorb it very well. Because this is a duality which we have been philosophically made to understand and realize from day one, which many other nations or many other cultures are not exposed to. And I think that that's the biggest advantage. It makes us to think. Our Vedic, that's why, many of the people, when we meet, they ask that what is Hinduism? Is it a religion? But Hinduism is not a religion. It stems from Vedic scripture, which is a philosophy. It's a way of thinking. We are the only Vedic philosophy, and the Vedic scriptures are the only scriptures which talks about 33 crore gods and goddesses. No one else can, we can't even think about 20, 30, 40, 50 के बाद यदि अपने सोचने लगे तो we can't even think about the 51st god or goddess. And we talk about 33 crore Devi or Deva. So it is because philosophy. So entire thing about our Vedic scriptures is about a philosophy. And I think this is something which makes Indian so content and happy in any of the circumstances. Because here, and I think that this is a very important role which everyone has to play, which many times we don't play that role because we don't want to go that path of the self journey. We all get scared if you have to think, sit down and think, because we think that, we don't know meditation. So what are we going to think about? But it's not about meditation. I think that there are three things which are very important in life. And especially at this particular time, when we have the time to think, we have the time to reflect on a lot of things. So 3 points which came to my mind, which was important, was introspection, contemplation, and swadhyaya. So I was trying to see that what is the difference between these three. The introspection, very simply, is looking at yourself. It is very easy to look at ourselves when we are standing in front of the mirror. So similarly, introspection is like a mirror in the mind when we put. So we see ourselves. The contemplation is to find out when we are looking at the mirror, then we see that where we are looking proper, where we are not looking proper, whether our hair is all right, our clothes are all right. So that is the contemplation part of it, when we go internally. And the swadhyaya, I could not find an English word for it because swadhyaya means self-study. अपना खुद का अध्ययन करना. और ये इतना profound है कि इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज में या इंग्लिश डिक्शनरी में उसका कोई माने ही नहीं, क्योंकि जो भी शब्द बहुत प्रोफाउंड होते हैं उसका कहीं पर भी कोई भी पर्यायवाची शब्द इंग्लिश में नहीं मिलेगा, इंग्लिश डिक्शनरी में मिलेगा. उसी तरह से स्वाध्याय है कि खुद के ऊपर किस तरह से स्टडी किया जाए, क्योंकि that introspection, then contemplation, and then swadhyaya is something which is very important, where we don't require anyone. We only require to be with ourselves. And I think that is the most important thing, to be in a position to discover who we are. And that is the biggest question. Many times, many of us, we get confused, we feel low, because we don't look at things, that this is a journey of our lives. And each one of us, we are having our own journey. And in this journey, like a passenger, we may be meeting our family members, we may be having our spouse or our children, our parents, our grandparents. So they are all friends. They are all passengers and co-passengers in this particular journey. But at the end of the day, it is our journey. And so no one can influence our journey. Our journey is basically dependent upon us. How do we take it? And I have tried to live a life which is very simple. So I think like a child. I behave like a child. So therefore, because a child is the most simple person on this planet. If a child is worried, if the child is hungry, he'll cry for his mother and the mother will come and feed. And the child is never bored. The child is always engaged. So today, if we are locked down in our houses and if we think like a child, then we will find that we are never bored because we are always engaged. Otherwise, we'll start thinking that we are getting depressed, we are bored because we are doing so many things. Now, what to do? What will happen? What will happen to my profession? What will happen to my business? What will happen to my career? What will happen to my family? What will happen to my spouse, my children, my parents? So we can keep on thinking about so many things which will make our mind so complex and complicated and which will bring in depression. Whereas if we think very simply like a child and be engaged in whatever we are doing, and fully engaged in very simple things in life, then we'll find that we were supposed to be, we have been created to be happy. We have been created to be joyful. And that is how God has created each one of us. But we don't choose to be like that because we get so surrounded by so many complexities and we start confusing our minds. And I think that this is something which we do it because we want to do it. Many times, especially for ladies and girls, I can say, because I have the good fortune of being with 4 generations of ladies. So my mother, so we are a joint family. My wife is there, my sister-in-laws are there, my daughter is there, my granddaughter is there. So therefore, I have 4 generations whom I'm interacting with. And I find it so interesting that all the 4 generations, they are so engaged in doing whatever is giving them joy. And each of them, they have different kind of engagements. So my mother is always very busy. She's busy with her own, she's busy with her friends in discourses, in watching Ramayana, which is coming, watching Mahabharata, singing, dancing, in bhajans. So she's occupied. My wife is occupied in doing so many. I just was asking my wife today morning that you are so busy. So she said, yes, I've been busy because I've been putting all the things together where I did not have the time. She is in music, she's in art. So she said that, I'm doing my paintings, I'm doing so many other things which I did not have the time. My daughter is busy with her children, with her husband. My granddaughters are more busy because they are so occupied now. They are 3 months old and 7 years old. So they are so occupied in doing so many things. So therefore, I don't find that anyone with this lockdown is feeling sad or depressed. Everyone is engaged in the manner that they want to get engaged in. And they're doing something which is constructive, which is contributing. And they are not worried about that whether they have to take care because there are duties which are very important. Because when we are in this particular life, this life is supposed to be having many responsibilities and duties. But those duties and responsibilities should make us happier and not be feeling the burden that this duty is putting on us. That if I have a family, then there is a burden because I have to take care of my family, I have to take care of this member, I have to take care of, sometimes many of the, as a male, we sometimes start feeling that the females are not as wise as us or as strong as us. But I don't agree with that because I think that each one of us, we are a soul on this planet. So today I may be a male in this life. Next life I may be a female. So similarly, vice versa. So each one of us, we are a soul. And as a soul, it is important for us to respect the other soul. And all the other souls are like passengers and co-passengers. So in our journey, and I've always thought about it that makes it very simple. Fortunately, in our businesses, we have been thinking about that what will happen when everything opens up. So therefore, the strategy always in the businesses were that how do you grow the business, in profession, that how do you enhance anyone who is in a profession or in a career or doing any kind of trading business. Everyone wants to grow. But sometimes it is important to just pause and see why we were growing and ask that particular question. Many times we were just growing because we just got into the train and we did not even realize that it was moving at a speed. So when it stops, then we realize and start thinking that what was the speed at which was going, and was that speed necessary? So therefore today, when we are all locked down, we are all trying to see, conserve food, conserve everything. So therefore, actually, if you think back, you will see that so many things that we were using, it was just bordering on greed. Our need is very simple. We don't require so much. Do we require so much of food? Do we require to go out for dinners and to parties? Do we require to socialize to the extent that we were doing it? Do we require to buy so many clothes? Do we want to buy cars? Do we want to buy, because all the cars are standing now. So if a person has a Mercedes or he has a Maruti or a cycle, it doesn't make a difference because everything is stranded. Did we require so many clothes? Did we? So therefore, the entire way that we are looking at our lives will change. And I think that this pause was very important. This pause, I think, is God gifted. God wanted us that, because he said that the whole universe is going at a speed where we were disturbing all the other species on this planet. So as humans, we were disturbing all the species. I was watching some of these small video clips which has been coming around, and I'm seeing that in the most busiest of places on this planet, now you have birds and ducks walking around, which they could have never imagined because they would have been picked up by someone and eaten away. So today you can see the blue skies, you can see the green grass, you can see the stars. At least when I stand on my rooftop in the house, I can see the stars, which I was never able to do. So you could hardly see the moon. So these are very simple things of nature, which we can really enjoy. And I think that this pause has been very good because it has made us to appreciate these small but beautiful things which have been created by God, which we had neglected because in our own race of life, we had overlooked all these things. So these are small things which I think is important and which we are now able to think and ponder on. And I think that with the time which is available to everyone, many people have the habit of reading, many people have the habit of painting, drawing, so many other facets of life which was there. And another point which I was just thinking about, and because we have thousands of people working in our organizations, so we have to continuously keep their spirits on. And we're just having a communication a few days back, and I was just telling them in a simple manner that people should also spend time on thinking, thanking, and transforming. So you have all the time available. So we have to think of small things which we had neglected to think because we did not have the time to think about. So we can think about so many things. We have to even thank the virus, because the virus has given us this opportunity to pause and think. And I always feel that God's universe has been created in such a manner that either we appreciate things, or if we do not appreciate, we will be forced into a situation where we'll learn how to appreciate. So this is a situation where the entire humanity has been forced to appreciate small things of life. And that is what we should be thanking. We have to think that we are safe, all of you, all of us, we are safe and healthy, but there are so many people who are not on this planet. So we have to thank God for that. And we have to be grateful to so many people who are basically out in the open, exposed to whether it be the health workers, the doctors, the nurses, the cleaners, the police people, the farmers, the grocers. They are exposing themselves to the risk of the virus. And they're ensuring that we live a life of comfort. Comfort is all relative. So relatively, we are more comfortable than what they are. And that is where we should thank them. So I think that this is a time to be grateful of everything. And gratitude is something which is extremely important. I learned as a child from my grandfather that ingratitude is the biggest crime. That if you're not grateful to certain people, if you're not grateful to things which are there and appreciate everything, so that is the biggest crime, because there are so many people who are helping us, the entire environment, entire nature. So this is a time to thank everyone, thank our family, thank our friends, thank everyone who are there in our family, that because of them, we feel safe and at least we are not in isolation. And that is where we need to thank everyone. And it also gives us a time to think, while thanking, to also transform. That transform, because many times with our egos, with our arrogance, like even Boris Johnson, who was the Prime Minister of UK, he was afflicted with coronavirus and he had to be isolated. And he's the Prime Minister. So he must have thought before he was isolated and before he was struck, afflicted by the coronavirus, that he is one of the most powerful persons on this planet. Mr. Trump thought that. And 20,000 plus people in US have died. So he has been shaken up. So a small invisible virus has shaken up everyone. So the transformation that I think which will be very important for us going forward would be to get over our arrogance, our egos, because the world has existed without us for so many centuries, thousands of years, because if we see this universe has been there for last 8 billion years. So it has existed for 8 billion years. So we do not count even in the history of this 8 billion years. If we live for 100 years also, we are insignificant. And when we see the stars and we see that we are, all these are so small. But if we just put ourselves that if we are on top of the universe and if we have to identify ourselves, we'll not even be a speck of dust. We can't even see ourselves. So we are that insignificant in the entire scheme of things of the universe. And still, many of us, I'm not saying that all of us, but many of us, we live with our egos, we live with our arrogance, we live with, this is what I want, and this is what my happiness is. But if we actually look at, and if we put ourselves on the top of the universe, or ask whoever is our loved one that, okay, I'm going to put you on top of the universe and you please try to find me out somewhere. He would not be able to search you with a telescope also, I'm sure. That insignificant we are. And still we have the power to do things which are unbelievable, the way that we can contribute. One Mahatma Gandhi, who was also an insignificant soul, if he was seen from the top of the universe, but how he was able to make a difference in the lives of so many people. So similarly, each one of us, we have so much of potential to change the planet, to change ourselves, the first change which has to begin, I feel, is from within ourselves. And if that is a change which can come only through a process of introspection, contemplation, and svadhyaya. And this is an ongoing process. It is not that, we do it one time and everything just falls in place. It is an ongoing process. And as souls, it may happen in one lifetime, it may happen in the next lifetime, it may happen in which lifetime we don't know. So every lifetime, we can just keep on improving ourselves from one lifetime to the other. And that needs to, so I think that these are kind of thoughts which we can engage into because we have the time to do so at this juncture. And I like reading a lot of books, so therefore it has given me a lot of time to read the books, various kind of books on mythology, on philosophy, on all these. So I like watching movies, so I catch up with my wife's movies because my children are all grown up. So therefore those are the kind of opportunities which I get. Other point which I think is another important aspect is the body, mind, and soul. So what are we doing to develop on an ongoing basis our body, mind, and soul? And are we conscious about it? See, because everything starts from the awareness. When we talk about the introspection, contemplation, svadhyaya also, it is all about awareness. That if we are aware about something, then only we can take action. If we are not aware about it, then we cannot take any action. So the awareness would be both in all three aspects of that. How do we develop our body, mind, and soul? So body can be developed. So because the body, I feel, is almost like a temple. The mind is like the priest, and the soul is a god. So each one of us, we have God within us, and the priest is our mind. So it will direct us to the soul, and the body is a temple. So when we go to a temple, we want the temple to be cleaned up. It should be having the right kind of fragrance. It should be clean. It should not be dirty, because none of us, we want to get into a dirty temple. So when we are getting into a temple, we want cleanliness there. So the body also similarly is like the temple, where the soul, which is a God, resides, and the mind will lead us into that soul, to that God, which is like the priest. So as we say that God exists within us, so if we say that we are part of that soul, that Paramatma, so we are that Atma, which is part of that Paramatma. So the soul is existing. So we start looking for God everywhere, but He is within us. We start looking that, so many of us, we are used to be going to temples because that is the ritual which we have followed from early in our life. So we want to go to the temple. But this lockdown has made us to realize that the temple is us, ourselves, each one of us. We are the embodiment of the temple. And we have the soul, the God within us. We have the priest, which is the mind. So all three are there. Now, how do we perform the puja of that soul, of that Paramatma? So therefore, the body, mind, and soul. So if we develop our body, if we develop our mind, and be conscious about our soul, and where do we want the soul to move in its path of development? So I think that it will keep all of us engaged, and at least it helps me to keep myself engaged and be occupied by thinking of doing exercises or keeping myself fit is something which is very important for me as a life routine. So my yoga, my pranayam, my exercise, I make it sure that I do it, because the temple has to be kept clean, fit, and agile. And then feed the mind with the right kind of thoughts. So the mind has to be fed with the right kind of thoughts, which comes from influences, which comes from books, which comes from thinking on an ongoing basis. And many times I think that especially in India. And I see many times that women get caught up. Which are there. Good learn see that how do you deal with everyone which is different. So we always as a family feel that the different people in the family is like a garden. So you have different flowers. So you have a rose flower, you have daffodils, you have lotus, and everyone, you cannot compare one with the other. So you can't compare a rose with a daffodil, with a lotus. A rose would have the fragrance where the lotus would have the beauty. So therefore, each flower is different. So similarly, it is like a family. A family is like a garden of different flowers. And each one has to be respected and their strength has to be seen. Sometimes, when we hold the rose with a thorn, which is there in the rose, we may think that there's a thorn in the rose. So we may not want that rose. It's our choice. But the rose has the fragrance, the beauty, which we'll neglect if you look at the thorn. So we have to look at the beauty of the rose and not the thorn, and not be mindful of the thorn, but the rose and the fragrance. So there, I think that is the perspective which each one of us we have to develop on our own. So as I say that the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So similarly, how we look at things is our perspective. Many times we start thinking that it is basically it is not important to, and especially in families, we start thinking that what does my husband think, what does my father think, what does my mother think, my mother-in-law think, so what would my children think. So we start looking at what everyone is thinking, and we have forgotten about ourselves. So usually it is very important for each one of us to be selfish to the extent that we first of all have to take care of ourselves. We have to make ourselves happy and joyful. If you're not able to do that, then we'll never be able to make anyone else happy or joyful. So it is important for us to make ourselves first of all happy. And if we are happy, then we will be in a position to spread happiness all around. And if we are not happy, then we'll not be able to do it. So I would like to take a pause. I think that I've spoken too much or too many things that I have dwelled on. I've just tried to share my experience, and I would say that if there are certain questions, Mrs. Kavita Agarwal, if you suggest this is fine, it is okay. Otherwise, I can continue or I can pause here and take the questions and then we can go forward.
So, sir, we would like you to take a few questions.
Yeah.
Being the moderator, I'll take the privilege of asking the first question.
Sure.
So, sir, as you said, it is very important for us to be happy first so that we can make others happy. And I think that it is the duty of the homemaker, the most important duty of the homemaker to make the family happy. And in that process, somewhere we forget our own happiness. And the second thing is we look for the respect in other people's eyes. And we feel that, if I am a homemaker and the other women is working women,
So there is a difference of respect in other people's eyes for us. Is that really real, or is that only our own perception?
No, I think that it is basically our own perception, because I feel that it is very important that to think about ourselves first. Because if we cannot make ourselves joyful and happy, if we are involved in doing our duties, or in fulfilling our responsibility which we feel, that is again a realization which has come to us, and that this is my duty, this is my responsibility. Because as a homemaker, as a person who is a wife or a daughter or a mother, so she would have different duties and responsibilities to different people. And the same person would be a mother, would be a daughter, would be a wife, would be a sister. So for different people, she would have different responsibilities. So if someone feels that no, these responsibilities are too overbearing on me and I should not be doing it, then they should not do it. Because if you are doing anything forcibly, and if you are not doing it in a happy state of mind, then you would be looking down upon yourself, and which is not right. And that is what God has not thought about when He was creating us. So God was very clear that I'm creating all of you. You have to realize your own responsibilities, fulfill your duties, and be happy.
Thank you, sir. We have few more questions. I'll ask them to read it out themselves. So let me first unmute Shraddha. She...
Yeah, sure.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I wanted to, you highlighted the 3 points about introspection, contemplation, and swadhyay. So contemplation was not very clear to me. Can you please throw some light on that?
See, basically, if you go up and look up the dictionary also, as I said, that Swadhyaya is the only word which has not been defined in the dictionary, because this comes from our own scriptures about Swadhyaya. And but introspection is very clearly defined of examination of our own thoughts. So when we stand in front of a mirror, then we see ourselves, our physical self. So similarly, if we just sit, close our eyes, and say that, okay, now I have a mirror inside my mind, and I'm going to see myself. Then you see yourself. That is the first step. That is introspection. And contemplation is then deeply thinking at length that what to do. Because you have seen yourself. So introspection is like you've seen yourself in the mirror, but then what do you do? The next action is that if your hair is not proper, if your dress is not proper, then do so. So similarly, in a contemplation, you then go deeper into your thought and see that these are the kind of things that I need to do for myself.
Okay. And you mean deeply thinking about your thoughts and then taking it ahead?
Yeah, and then taking it.
Which one you want to take ahead?
Yes. So
thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. So you basically examine both your strengths and weaknesses, what you like doing,
right.
what you don't like doing, what you would like to do. So let us suppose that you would like to do something and you're not doing it, but you think that it is appropriate for you to do it, but your family members may not like it. It doesn't make a difference. You know, according to me, I think that no one should give a damn to what your family member or your friend or what anyone wants, because then you become a slave. So you should do what you want to do, and that is why you should reflect on it in a proper manner and see that this is appropriate. I should do it. Unless you are forced into circumstances. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So the next question is from Rinku. So Rinku, you can ask your question now. Rinku,
hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, I have a question. Like, we are always doubted for our potential in day-to-day living. So how should we face that situation?
See, I would say that I keep on telling
other than homemaker,
my daughter and everyone, that please do not bother about what we say. You should think that what is making you happy, you should do that first. And because otherwise, you live a life of bondage. And we have not been created as souls to live in bondage. We have been created to be free. Now, if we are in bondage, we want to ourselves put ourselves into that bondage. So I think it is very important that first of all, we should start respecting ourselves and saying that we are going to live a life of self-esteem and dignity. And then you will find that other people will also start respecting it. Whether they respect it today, tomorrow, day after, but they would do that. It'll definitely happen.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So the next question is from Shashi. So Shashi, you can ask your question.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So it's a privilege to hear you, and I'm very grateful to be here today. So my question will be, what are your views on the economy after COVID-19? When do you think we can revive and be back to normal? Like someone is saying it will be next 2 quarters. So sometimes we really worry, like, so being from the financial services and infrastructure background, maybe you could throw some light and help us understand.
The way the businesses have been done or were being done would totally change now, because the economy is go through a transformation which it has not seen. Whether it is for good or bad, I think everything is for good. There is nothing which is for bad which is created. About 15, 20 years back, India's growth rate used to be of 2.5%, and it was said that it was a Hindu rate of growth, and we grew at about 40, 50 years at 2 to 2.5%. And then it went up to 10%, and we got used to 10%. And which started coming down, and people felt that, you know, there's a great depression which is going to come in. Today, the reality would be that after this economy restarts, it will be a different way that the economy will be working. The way that we were doing businesses would change. People would have got used to technology. So much of travel, so much of people wasting money will all stop, or will basically people will rethink about it, because we have all got now exposed to doing business in a different manner. So this has been a big disruption. So disruptions are always very important. Either we embrace it voluntarily or it will happen. So today this disruption has happened. So therefore the businesses will get affected. So everyone who was planning about growth has to now rethink and look at survival. So the mantras for the next 1 year would be survival and stability. There would be nowhere it will be growth, because every business will have to look at that. From the perspective of survival and stability are the two tests which people will have to do with their businesses. The second most important thing would be that because the way of doing businesses or running our lives would have changed, so we have to adapt to that. Consumerism is another area which is going to be totally depressed, because people will now start asking questions to themselves that, do I need to go for shopping? Do I need to buy all these things? Or do we not? Is it useful or is it useless? So therefore, people will start asking these questions which we were not asking earlier. So companies which are involved in the consumer durables, consumer items, etc., on all the lifestyle, fashions, will have an effect on their businesses. The third area which will happen is each nation will start looking at themselves and become more introverts. So they will all look internal. So they will have to, whichever nation is able to rebuild their economies internally faster, would remain robust. And whichever country is not able to do that will flounder and face problems. So I think that each leader of each nation is it that they should be doing to make their country more robust, see that there is an employment which gets created for their own country people, the poverty is alleviated. So everyone has to go back to their drawing boards and rethink about their strategies, whether it be nations, whether it be economists, whether it be businesses, whether professions, everyone will have to do that. So that would be the new life after COVID.
Sir, we have one more question from Payal. So you're comfortable taking a few more questions?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've kept myself free till 5, so.
That's great, sir. So Payal, you can ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So my question, as soon as we start living for ourselves, that you, as you said earlier, lots of clashes arises within the family. So how to make your family understand that?
So I think that
It's with your in-laws, with your husband.
Yeah, so I think that balance is very important. So when we are living for ourselves, the questions that we have to also ask is that if someone is the husband or the wife, then the duties also and the responsibilities. So we have to be aware about those particular responsibilities. If, let us suppose that if a person is, she is a daughter, she would be a wife, she would be a mother. So for each person, there would be different responsibilities. So therefore, if the person is fulfilling those responsibilities happily and joyfully, then she is doing exactly what she wants to do and not what the husband or the mother or the daughter wants them to do. So it's just a change of the perspective.
Sir, there is another question from Richa. So, Richa, you can ask your question now.
Thank you, Kavita. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Sir, I want to ask that I have a great interest in reading our ancient scriptures, although I must say that they're not very easy and it takes up a lot of concentration to even understand a couple of lines. Could you suggest something that we all could read here, which we can easily understand and, you know, which can propel us on our way to Swadhyay or understanding ourselves better before we strive to understand others?
Nice. See, I also don't read the scriptures. I only read books which maybe, let's suppose, just to give you an example, I was reading a very interesting book on Bhishma Pitama. And it was a book in Hindi. After a long time, I was reading Main Bhishma Bol Raha Hoon. And it was a very insightful book because Bhishma Pitama was lying on the bed of arrows and he was contemplating and thinking that what all he did, and if he had done it, if he did it differently, then how the whole world would be, that Mahabharata would not have happened. If he had married, then Mahabharata would not have happened because he would not have had grandchildren like Dhritarashtra or great grandchild like Duryodhana if he had married. So the whole life would have been different. If he had not done so many things, if he had not sided with Duryodhana. So, all these, so I read these kind of books because and then I try to think and try to take away that what are the lessons which I've learned from them and what can be implemented in the day-to-day lives. And I find that a lot of these books when you read, it may be very simple, but it is profound because from the lives of these people, Mahatma Gandhi, all these great people, when you read their books, you can learn so many things from them. And just a small point also if we take, and then if we keep on developing it and say that, and we think about implementing it in our lives, we will find that it will have immeasurable results. And that is what I try to do. So I was just reading a book about a few years back, which was very interesting because I never realized, and someone had presented the book to me. This was the Supreme Yoga, Yog Vashisht. This is a dialogue between Guru Vashisht and Ram. And in that particular book, it gave me a different perspective because Ram, as the God, it was a dialogue between God and his Guru, but God in the form of a human. And God was asking certain questions to his Guru, which each one of us would be asking to our people, our Gurus, and we would have no answers. So he was asking that whether there is a God or no God. And Guru Vashisht told him that there is no God. It is your perspective. So it made me think that, how simple it is, but how profound. And you can take one of these thoughts and it can take you days and years to ponder on it and then try to implement it in our lives. So I think that is, I'm just sharing my experience. I'm sure that most of you would be reading books and understanding things. You might be having much, much deeper understanding, but and more profound appreciation and comprehension than I would have. So I look at things very simply.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you please repeat the names of both the books? that Vishwa.
So this was recently which I read. मैं भीष्म बोल रहा हूँ. I think that that book is available. It is written by a very famous author, and I'm just forgetting the name of it. I'll just find it out and send it to you, the name of the author. मैं भीष्म बोल रहा हूँ. So it's about the life of Bhishma Pitama and himself saying that. And then the second one is the Supreme Yoga. Yog Vashisht is in Hindi. And there is one English version of that, which is written by Swami. Again, I'm very bad at remembering the authors now. So it's a Supreme Yoga. Yog jo bolte hain. Yog matlab ki it's unison of the mind, soul, and body is what yoga is all about. So this is Supreme Yoga. Vashisht Yoga Hindi mein bolte hain.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, we have 2-3 more questions. Can we go ahead?
Sure, we can do that, no problem.
Okay, so Namrata has a question. I'll just unmute her. Namrata, you can ask your question.
Just a minute.
Okay, so I'll move on to Shashi then. Namrata, are you ready? Shashi, you can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Oops. Sorry, Shashi. Yeah. Please say again.
I would want you to share top 3 learnings or lessons in your life which have brought you to this level in life and you've achieved so much. Top 3 learnings or your mantras in life which will help us achieve a lot.
I think that basically what is the most important thing which I've learned in my life is to think in a very simple manner, because life is simple, so don't complicate it. So think in a simple way. If there is anything which is to be approached to anyone also, it has to be simple, whether it be team members, whether it be family members. And you have to be candid about things, but at the same time, it has to be presented in a manner which is, so that is the second one, that it has to be presented to people in the manner that it is appealing. So again, the learning is from our scriptures. जैसे कि हिंदी में बोलते हैं कोई अंधा है तो उसको सूरदास बोलते हैं, उसको अंधा बोलकर नहीं बुलाते हैं. लेकिन यदि अपनी अंग्रेजी में देखें तो सूरदास बोलकर कुछ नहीं, is blind. So there is a person who is blind, you say that blind man please come here. But if you call a blind man, if you tell him blind please come here, he doesn't like it. But that is the factual thing. But you say it in a nice manner, which is more, which sounds nice to the other person, is surdas. So you're saying the same thing. So how do you present to a person something which the person does not find it offensive? So you can communicate it properly. The third thing which is very important is that to be joyful and happy in whatever circumstances that you are in, and be content with whatever you have. So basically, if you get something, be content with it, whether it is small, large, nothing. You have to just live to be content and be happy with whatever you get. And definitely, I'm not saying that you should not be working hard, you should be lying idle, but after doing all your hard work, also people should work hard. At the same time, there should not be any expectations, because whatever you get, if you are happy with that, then you will find that there is no stress that you can get in your life. So these are very simple things which I look at in life.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I will ask one more question from my side, sir. Since you started working at a very young age of 17 years, and I think that was 30 years ago or before that. So, sir, in today's situation, when our kids turn 17, do you think it is suggestive to ask them to start working, or they should first finish their studies and then get into the working mode?
I think that for everyone, life has a different experiments which life does with everyone. So with me, my life had a different experiment. I'm 57 now, so I started 40 years back. So when I was 17, so life had a different experiment for me. So therefore, I was going through that experiment of life. But everyone should study, they should complete their studies. So when I was working, I was doing my studies also. I was going to college in Xavier's in the morning and then getting for work. So because life had different circumstances for me, which was created at that particular time. So, I think that it's very different for everyone. There is no prescription that one medicine will do. There's no panacea for all these issues. It has to be all self-driven, and everyone has to take their own decisions depending upon their circumstances.
But sir, is it true that one wears out if they start too early? Like, are we like machine ki ek particular life hai, work life? If we start too early, we will wear out too early. Is it?
I don't think so, because I don't think so that I've gone worn out now, because it's been 40 years that I've been there. So I'm as excited, I'm as childlike, as excited an entrepreneur as a 20-year-old kid would be. So I work with my son, my nephews, my nieces who are very, very young. And I have the same. So it's all, because basically I don't think so that wearing out, even my father, who is, he is also working, but he's involved until night. He's engaged in doing something which is constructive. So I don't think so that life anytime wears us out. The experience that we gain out of doing anything. So there's nothing small or big. Everything helps us to gain experience. It is all dependent upon us that how do we take it.
Very nice, sir. And we would like to now end the session. Sir, any last takeaway which you would like to share with all of us?
So I just said that this particular interaction today for me has been sharing my experiences and my takeaways. So I'm definitely taking a lot of things away from you all. So thank you very much. I don't know what you would be taking. It is all dependent upon you, but I am going back richer in my learning from all of you. So thank you for this experience.
Thank you so much, sir. And I would like now Renu Aunty to speak because this session has happened because of her only. So, Renu Aunty, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, Aunty.
And enlightened so many of us. I just have one question. I have really taken a lot of time of yours other day also, but I have really gained a lot. I just wanted to ask you one thing, how to think simply, in a simple manner. Just give me an example. How do you think in a simple manner?
That's the most difficult question. Because to think in a simple manner, you don't have to do anything. You just have to think in a simple manner. You just have to think like a child. And you will find that everything just
give me an example of thinking.
So let's suppose that, for example, what comes up in the life, like in the morning, I was speaking to my wife and I was telling her that, this is what I'm going to be doing in the afternoon. And then in the evening, there is this, have an interaction with Mr. Dr. Abhijit Banerjee. And I just don't know what are the questions that I will be asking him. And the interaction which I'm going to be having with all of you, and this is my first experience of having with so many sisters here. So I said that, what should I be saying? And she said that just say what you want to say and be just simple. So that's what I just have been with all of you. So that was my simple learning from my wife today, and which I'm sharing with you.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and energy you have given, the motivation you have given to all of
to
us.
compliment you, have a very sweet smile. I think you still now have that innocent sweet smile of a child, so that is also a learning for me.
Thank you.
I 100% agree with you.
Thank you so much.
So,
thank you. Really humble. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita, for this opportunity.
Thank Hemant sir for his precious time, and sir, it was actually a very great session. Lot of takeaways. And usually we do not talk much about our ancient Vedas and other things because we feel ki we should move towards Western culture, and we are more more fascinated with that. But today it was an eye-opening for most of us, and fantastic, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank
So we will end the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Kavita.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
everyone.
Thank you, Renu auntie.
Thank you.
Thank you.